Master Your Mindset Radio, episode 28.
Welcome to Master Your Mindset Radio, the show where we empower you to conquer limiting beliefs and transform your world with your gifting and purpose. Now for your host, Elizabeth Nader.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Master Your Mindset Radio. Today's focus is on the fear factor in your life. I have to address fear all the time as a mindset coach because we are constantly living in either a state of faith or a state of fear. The two do not combine, the two do not coexist. You are in one or the other. And if you followed me for any time at all, I've read my book, you'll know that I talk about that a lot. But what is it about fear and fear as a factor in your life and why it's important to address fear the right way? You know, I like to use the acronym that fear is false evidence appearing real, because many times it truly is. It's something that we're afraid of that isn't even based in truth. Now, sometimes that's not always the case, as in situations where fear keeps us alive. Fear keeps us from running across a busy highway. Fear keeps us from hurting ourselves by putting our hand on a hot stove. Certainly fear has its place in our lives, and it definitely can keep us from hurting or harming ourselves or taking a risk that would clearly result in something very negative. But that's not usually the fear that we're worried about. That's not the fear that challenges us. That's the fear that just exists in daily life, that keeps us going from day to day, that keeps us in common sense, right? The fear I'm talking about is really the fear of the unknown, the fear of the what ifs, the fear of not sure which direction to take, the fear that keeps you up at night, that keeps you focused on situations that haven't even happened yet, the fear that has you convinced that something is a way that maybe it's not. That is your false evidence appearing real. So what do we do about the fear factor in our life? I mean, it's in everybody's life. All of us have to deal with it really almost day to day, sometimes just a few times a week. It depends on where you're at with your mindset, but it's a common challenge. So what do we do about fear? Well, I really feel like we need to address it head on and we need to embrace it because I think it can teach us a lot. I believe that it has a motivating presence in our life if we look at it correctly. So let's take apart fear and really understand why it's there. When we have fear about a situation, let's, for example, take our business. If you own a business, let's say you're afraid that your business is going to fail. You're afraid that you're not going to get a phone call next morning from a client, that the business is going to stop coming in, that you're going to have to close up shop. You're afraid of failure, and that's related to your business. That fear is not something that is based in any reality. It is a fear of the what ifs. It is a fear of the future. The future may be in 10 minutes, it may be tomorrow, but it is definitely a fear of what could happen. Now, that fear may be founded in your past. And definitely when you go through difficult things, you absolutely will develop fears, if you're not careful, that will project themselves into your future. It's sort of that feeling of, oh gosh, it's going to happen again. What if it happens again? So in my example, if you've had a business fail in the past, you certainly could drag that fear into the future with you now in your new business and think, oh my gosh, it could happen again. Here are the signs it's happening again. So what do we do when we have a fear like that? Well, we have choices, right? We can embrace the fear. And literally, that's what some people do. When I say embrace it, I mean, they just hold on to it. They nurse it. They hug it. They live with it. They just don't want to let it go because it's familiar. Even though it hurts them, it's more of a known factor than the what ifs of faith. Sometimes fear becomes so well known to us and we're so comfortable with it and we've dealt with it for so long in a particular way in our life that it's actually easier for us just to embrace it and continue to commiserate about it and continue to just say, hey, I'm afraid this may happen. And I know, especially if it's happened to me before, what that feels like. So rather than risk being wrong and rather than risk the possibility that success may not happen, I'm going to hold on to this fear of failure. And it sounds crazy that someone would do that, but We all do it all the time. We definitely do it. It's like the saying, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. I don't know if I believe in success if it's actually going to happen in this case, in this scenario, but I do know what failure feels like, and I'm just going to hold on to that fear because it'll keep me safe. But will it? Will it really keep you safe? So that's one option, hold on to it. The other option, which a lot of us do in any given area, is we ignore the fear, and we think that's good mindset work. We say we're just going to be in faith and we're just going to ignore that fear. We're just going to put that fear away, that thought away. We're just not going to think that fear thought. And hey, there's a very valid reason not to think that fear thought, and it's good to train your brain to put away a negative thought. But that fear thought isn't going away until you replace it with something else, until you replace it with a thought of faith that you've emotionalized, you've put emotion into, that you believe in. You cannot just wish away fear. You cannot just ignore fear. Certainly, if you're facing something like, you're gonna go skiing down the side of a mountain and you're afraid and you just put away that fear and you just go. Yeah, that's a decision, hopefully with common sense. Hopefully you can ski. Hopefully it's not a double black and you don't know what you're doing, but you've decided I'm going to put that fear away and I'm just going to go for it. And that's your plan. But, in life, in general things that we deal with, like the example I'm giving of you're afraid your business is going to fail, just trying to put that fear away and just not think about it is not going to make you successful, is not going to erase that fear from your life. It's still going to be a factor, because what haven't you done? You haven't put together a plan of faith, a faith-based plan to deal with that fear, to address that fear, and to come up with strategies and tactics to actually conquer that fear. So we can't just be sitting in our lives passively hoping that our fears will go away, passively using positive thoughts to conquer fear thoughts. It's not enough for us, and especially for those thoughts that take deep root in our lives, like the example that I'm giving. What if you have fears about your finances, right? Same kind of thing. It takes deep root in your life. If you have fears about a relationship that may be ending or could end, if you have fears about what your kids' decisions may or may not be, fears about your health, all of these things are not going away simply by going away, just by wishing them away or employing positive thoughts, because positive thoughts just sit on the surface. They don't become part of your controlling belief system until you emotionalize them. And in order to emotionalize them and have your subconscious take note and actually begin to agree with that positive thought, you have to have an action plan put into place based in faith. That's how you take a positive thought and emotionalize it. That's how you take a positive thought and actually use it as a weapon against your fear. Without that, it's just positive thinking. Without that, fears don't disappear on their own. So anything that is a riding fear in your life, anything that is a paramount fear, anything that's a recurring fear in your life, you've got to look at it and say, what plan, what action, what way can I actually allow this fear to get me to mobilize, to come up with a plan, not only to address the fear, but conquer the fear and also replace it with faith that's actually bringing blessing and turnaround into my life. Let that fear factor be a motivator. Allow it to be something where you're not just being ridden by the fear all the time, but that you're looking at that fear, you're recognizing it, you're not wishing it away, you're not embracing it, but you're coming up with a faith-based plan to actually fully address that fear and to actually begin to change things in your life so that fear is no longer prominent. You do not have to live with the same fears the rest of your life. You do not have to live with the fears your parents lived with. You do not have to continue to come up against the same things. It's just not necessary. And I'm not saying you're going to get to a point where no fears are there. I'm just saying that, yes, we can conquer certain fears and move on. We see so many people do that. We applaud those stories. There's no reason you can't do that. You don't need to keep living with the same fear. So what do? Again, take a hard look at that fear and make sure it's not false evidence appearing real. Make sure you take it apart and you say, where is the truth or the potential truth in this fear? That's the first thing you got to do, because so much of it is lies and not truth, and we just believe it without questioning it. So first, we find any nugget of potential truth in a fear that may signal, okay, this is potentially something that could happen. And we first acknowledge it's not happening right now, but in order for us to conquer it, we're going to go to a place of faith, we're going to operate from a place of faith, and we're going to come up with a plan to address strategies and tactics to address that fear so that we can actually take it apart, dismantle it in our life, right? Just instead of having that fear cause all this chaos in our life, which fears have a tendency to do. They have a tendency to take our focus. They have a tendency to cause a lot of distraction, a lot of chaos. Everything is like cattywampus in our life. Don't you love that word? Cattywampus. Everything is in disarray. My grandmother used to say that word all the time. It's all just cattywampus. It's all just a mess. It's all just in disarray. It's not lined up. Well, you don't need to live a life that's all cattywampus because of your fears. I don't think that word's going to take hold. Actually, I think that probably belongs back in the 50s where we got it. Anyway, but it is a powerful visual, isn't it? That everything is just a mess. And fears have a tendency to do that. They have a tendency to cause that chaos. We need to address that fear factor. We need to get a hold of it instead. And the reality is, in some cases, let's be honest, we're unwilling to deal with our fears. And we say, I wish I could, but I don't want to. We don't want to do the work. We don't want to do what we have to do to address those fears. And as long as you're willing to be honest with yourself and say, that's where I'm at, and that's where you're at, recognize it, because you will get to a point, hopefully, where you want to address that fear and finally eliminate it. But we're not always in that place. We're not always in that position where we want to. We know that there's work involved, and sometimes we are simply unwilling to do the work. But here is the truth. You know what you need to do when fear comes at you. We are not going to eliminate the fear factor in our life for good. We won't do that as long as we're on earth. But what we can do is use it as our fuel. Just as we use failure as our fuel, use fear as your fuel. Not to stop you, not to make you crazy and focused on it, but to help you understand that you can make good decisions, wise decisions, plans and strategies that can eradicate that fear because you're coming from a place of faith. I'm telling you, it works. Every time I've done it in my life and I've been committed to it, it works. And those fears just don't come up anymore. Every now and then they may try to kind of pop their head up and try to threaten me. And I say, no, I dealt with you. That's a joke. I'm not dealing with that fear. Because every time you do this, your brain actually changes chemically, and your brain says, wow, I don't need to deal with that anymore because I have a plan, I have a strategy, I have a way to deal with that fear, and it's worked in the past, so I can check that one off the list. Your subconscious has new ways of thinking. It's gotten rid of limiting beliefs because you've done the work. You've put that work into action. And this is the kind of work we do at the Mindset Reset Intensive. I was working all weekend and last week on all the exercises and all the things we're going to be talking about. And I'm just sitting there looking at that thinking, oh my gosh, who would not want to do this work? Who does not want freedom from limiting thoughts and fears that are holding you back, that are obscuring your future? Everybody needs to do this. I love doing stuff like that. I will never stop doing stuff like that. So if you're wondering if you should go, yes, you should go. If you're wondering if you need to commit time and resources to mastering your mindset, you do. I do it all the time. I'm not a hypocrite. I don't ask people to spend money with me, spend time with me if I don't do it myself. Just today, I signed up for another course with a great coach to take me to the next level. It's something that you have to keep doing if you want to pursue your purpose in full and you want to conquer those limiting beliefs, drive those fears away, and continue to have a plan, an action plan, a way, a strategy, tactics that will allow you to deal with everything that life brings your way in a way that is so successful, in a way that is so victorious, in a way that you can model for your kids, model for other people. And so therefore, you can walk in your purpose and change your world and change the world around you. So don't forget to look at that, guys. Registration is going to be closing before you know it, and that's it. And you will miss this. It's on March 28th. If you go to mindsetreset2020.com, or you go to my website, elizabethnader.com. You can get to it from there as well. And if you want to call me and talk to me about it, feel free to do that. I'm happy to share with you why it's going to be life-changing. It's one day, one very intensive day, and we're going to have a small group. So you guys are going to have so much exposure to amazing stuff. I will be doing some hot seat coaching, a lot of things that will really change your life. You're going to walk in one day and leave one way, and leave another way. We're going to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Because mindset work, it's all about addressing that gap. And there's always a gap in our life. No matter how hard we try and how hard we work, we're always at a place where we're okay, but we want to be somewhere else, right? We should always have those goals. You get to the goal line, you should move the goal line. I mean, that's living. That's living in a way that is your best life, is constantly moving that goal line and constantly running after something bigger or something better. So you keep improving what you're doing and you continue to make a bigger impact on this world. So Mindset Reset 2020, in a few weeks, it's going to be here, and then you won't hear me talk about it anymore, but we're going to have some other fun stuff that we'll be announcing that will be coming out after that reset is over. So guys, have a great week. Focus on rewriting those fears into actual faith and have a plan and a way to do it so that you can retrain your brain and you can finally not deal with that specific fear anymore. God bless you guys. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to Master Your Mindset Radio. Before you go, if you want to be part of a free online community of like-minded individuals for support, resources, and inspiration as you conquer your limiting beliefs and pursue your purpose, go to elizabethnader.com/community. That's elizabethnader.com/community, or search for Master Your Mindset Academy private group on Facebook. Looking forward to seeing you online.